Hello everyone, welcome to Big Friendly Grub. I hope you're safe and well. Now, not too long ago, I picked myself up a copy of this book. It's called Signature Dishes That Matter, and it says on the back, it celebrates the most iconic and influential dishes from the last 300 years, from the very first restaurant to today's innovative dining scene. And it is packed full of all sorts of wonderful recipes. They range from extremely complicated to things like oysters and pearls, which uses caviar and things like that, to really more basic things. I say basic, more things that people would consider simpler, like the Big Mac. That's in here as well, and it is a signature iconic dish. And I put up on Twitter and Instagram, I was asking what recipes I should make out of this, and the two that people seem to really latch onto was one, baked Alaska, and two, the Philly cheesesteak. Because they were so close, I thought I'll do them both. I will do them both, but I won't do them both in one video. So today, because I'm recording on July the 4th, I thought I would do the Philly cheesesteak today. Now, the Philly cheesesteak has been on my foodie bucket list for God knows how long. It's something I've wanted to try for ages, and I've never got round to trying it. I feel like if I'm going to try it, I have to go to Philly to try it, and unfortunately I haven't got the chance. And because of the whole coronavirus thing that's going on, it doesn't look like I'm going to get to go to the USA anytime soon. I mean, besides the fact that I'm broke, that I won't be able to get over to the USA anytime soon, let alone to get to specifically Philly to try the Philly cheesesteak. So I thought I might as well try and bring the Philly cheesesteak to me. Now, I've been to America a few times. I really like America. It does a lot of things really, really well. It does a lot of things not so well as well. But I won't go into that. But one thing it does do really well is food. It's got so much great food out there, so many iconic signature dishes in the USA, and the Philly cheesesteak is one of them. So I really want to give that a go. Now, I've had a look at the recipe in this book, and to be honest, I'm not going to be able to do this exact recipe because there are some things I have not been able to get hold of. It says to use 1 jar of processed cheese sauce. We don't have cheese sauce over here in the UK. We don't really do the processed cheese stuff over here. It also says to use like soybean oil. I don't have soybean oil. I don't think we can get that over here. If you can, it's not very easy to get hold of. And also this recipe says you can optionally have mushrooms sauteed in oil, which I'm not going to do, to be honest, because I've never pictured a Philly cheesesteak to have mushrooms in it, so I won't be doing that. So I am going to be making a Philly cheesesteak today. It's not going to be this exact one from the recipe, but I have looked into the Philly cheesesteak a lot. I am just a British guy who's never had one before. Researched into it a bit, and I think I know what goes into making a good Philly cheesesteak. I won't say it's the best Philly cheesesteak ever because I've never made one before, but I'm going to give it my very best go. Now, before I get started, let's do a bit of background on the Philly cheesesteak because it gives you a very nice description in the book. You might be able to see that lovely illustration there. Bit of a history lesson. The street cart sandwich that came to represent the city. The Philadelphia cheesesteak was born when an Italian immigrant's young son, who was selling hot dogs and fish cakes on the corner in South Philly, tired of his offerings one day, asked his brother Harry to run to the butcher shop for some scraps of meat. Harry came back with thinly sliced beef, which Pat crisped up in the griddle with some onions and served it on a hot dog bun. As legend would have it, a cab driver who frequented their cart liked what he smelled and asked Oliveri to make him his off-menu sandwich. He spread the word to his caddy friends and told Oliveri that he should stop making hot dogs to focus on his new creation. A street star was born. So one other thing I really want to do is make the bread for this, because I searched around looking for appropriate bread to use for this, and they use a very specific type of bread. It's like an Italian long roll, and I don't think we can get the exact bread over here. I am going to be trying to make that myself as well. I looked around online and I found a couple of recipes that might work, so I'm going to be trying to adapt those as well. So I'm going to try and make the bread from scratch as well. So I'm really going all in on this, and if that fails, I'm just going to use these brioche baguettes. So if I make a complete hash of the bread, at least I've got a fallback. Deal? Deal. So we've had a bit of a history lesson. We've had a little look into what the Philly cheesesteak is. So it's now my time to try and make a Philly cheesesteak, and I'm going to try and make it as authentically as I possibly can, with the huge caveat that is I am a British guy. I've never had one before. I'm just going by what I have seen. But hopefully this will really help me bring the Philly cheesesteak to me. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off by making my Italian long rolls. We've got rolls that are similar over here. We've got things like submarine rolls and baguettes and things like that. But I'm trying to go as authentic as I possibly can. So I wanted to try and make these from scratch. And to do that, I'm going to go a bit off-piste from my usual way of making bread. And I'm going to be going the full method of like activating yeast and doing all sorts of things like that, really taking my time with it to try and make the most authentic Italian long rolls that I possibly can. So I've got 350 milliliters of liquid here. I've got lukewarm water and I've got some warm milk as well, and there's probably about a 175 to about 125 split between the water and the milk. I'll put all the measurements that I'm using in the description and into the recipe as well, so you can find those there. And to that I'm going to be adding a sachet's worth of yeast, and to that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons worth of caster sugar as well, because yeast absolutely loves sugar, and that's really going to help that get going and active. And I'm going to start mixing that into there. This is not how I usually do it. Usually this yeast would work perfectly well just adding it straight into the dry ingredients, but like I say, I'm going with methods that I have seen online just to try and make these as authentic as I possibly can. So I'm just going to leave that and come back in about 10 minutes when that should be a bit more active, and then I can start adding this into my dry ingredients. So 10 minutes later, that yeast is looking lovely and active. You can see that there, you can see all that frothiness and bubbliness, so that is lovely active yeast. So I can now get that into my dry ingredients. I've already got a bowl with 500 grams of strong white bread flour in it, and into that I've already mixed about 2 teaspoons worth of salt. So I'm going to add this into my stand mixer like so. And then I'm just going to set that off on a medium to lowish speed just to try and get that all mixed together. So that's combined into a dough. It's a little bit sticky, but it feels pretty good otherwise. So I'm now going to let this rest for 15 minutes. Again, something I'm not usually do with bread, but I'm trying to be authentic and follow like recipes that I've seen online for these Italian long rolls. So I'm going to let it rest for 15 minutes, and I'm going to come back and then give it about 10 minutes worth of kneading to bring it into a really nice dough. Right, after 15 minutes resting, I'm getting the dough hooked back in. I'm going to set this off again on about medium speed and get this kneaded in together for about 10 minutes. So after about 10 minutes worth of kneading, we've got a lovely, smooth, elastic dough. It's really lovely and soft. It's a really nice dough. Now, one of the recipes I saw said you can prove this in the fridge overnight. To be honest, I don't have room in the fridge, so I'm just going to give this a normal, regular proof. I'm going to pop my little hat on it here. So I'm going to give this about an hour, hour and a half. Then I can come back and I can start shaping it into our long roll shape. So after a good hour or so, this has doubled in size. So I'm going to get this out of the bowl, throw down a good dusting of flour, knock any of the air out, well, getting flour everywhere, and put some more flour over there. Then I'm going to divide this up into 4 pieces of dough, about roughly equal size. I say roughly because I'm not very good at estimating this. Then I'm going to shape these out into like roughly like a rectangle type shape. So I've got a very rough rectangle shape there, and I'm going to now try and roll this up into a baguette shape. And I'm going to do that by pulling it over and then just pressing down each bit. And bring it over as tightly as I can, and then bring it over again. Keep doing that. I'm going to tuck these ends in so I get a nice rounded end, and keep pressing over and over. I'm going to repeat that each time. So I've got that into a rough baguette shape. Then I'm going to bring this over and pinch this seal together. So with a nice seal under there, I'm going to now roll it out into a longer shape, try and get this as even as I possibly can. So I've got that into one nice long evenish baguette shape, so I'm going to do that for the other 3 pieces of dough. So I've got my dough shaped into 4 roughly even-ish baguette type shapes. How many caveats can one man make about his baguette? Probably quite a few actually. These are now shaped into roughly even-ish shapes, and I've put these onto a tray which I've dusted with a bit of flour and also some polenta, which is the closest thing we can get to cornmeal over here. So I've got that dusted and on that tray, and I'm just going to cover this up with a very clean tea towel for about an hour or so, just to let these prove again and hopefully again double in size, and then we can come back and we can get these in the oven to make the rolls for our Philly cheesesteak. This is just the first stage, so hopefully these will come out lovely. So after a good hour or so, these have doubled up in size very nicely. So I'm just going to get these dusted with a bit of flour, and I'm just going to cover them with a bit of the polenta as well, just for a nice bit of texture to it. Then to stop these from splitting when they're baked in the oven, I'm just going to run down them with one of these blades to create a split in it naturally. So then we're going to want to pop these into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes at about 200 degrees C. So into the top of the oven these go. And then I'm just going to pop some water into a tray in the bottom of the oven to create a nice load of steam, so these all rise up very, very nicely. Close the oven and give those a good 15 to 20 minutes to bake. Right, it's been about 15 minutes and these should be about ready to come out of the oven. Oh yes, look at those. Those have come out a really nice colour. They've risen up really nicely and they look really good. They look really nice. Those will do nicely for our Philly cheesesteak. So I'm going to leave these to cool for a little bit, not too long, because quite frankly, I want to get started on the cheesesteak part of our Philly cheesesteak. And this is going to be my lunch, so I'm really hungry. I'm waiting for it. So I'm going to leave these to cool for about, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. And then I'm going to get going with the cheesesteak part of our Philly cheesesteak. Right, we can now move on to the cheesesteak part of our Philly cheesesteak. And while I'm not following this recipe exactly, I'm going to quickly refer to it just to make sure I haven't missed anything. So I want one large Spanish onion or a brown onion cut into a large dice, which I'm just about to do in a moment. I've got my onion there. I want some ribeye steak, which I have got. Got my crusty Italian rolls, and here it says I could add sweet and green red peppers or mushrooms, and they are optional. I'm not going to be adding those today. I'm going to go for the basics today. And because I don't have the processed cheese sauce, I'm going to be using a different cheese. I'm going to be using a provolone cheese, which is a very popular cheese that they use on Philly cheesesteak, so I'm going to be using those instead. That is everything, so I'm going to now get started on with this cheesesteak part of our cheesesteak. So I'm going to slice up this onion into a large dice, so I'm going to start getting into this very, very carefully. Got a very sharp knife here. And cut down this way, cut through this once and twice very carefully, and just dice this up. Right, there's my onion all sliced and diced. I'm going to move that to one side. Next I want to thinly slice my ribeye steak, which I've got here. I've had it in the freezer for about an hour just to firm up a bit, because it's going to make it much easier to slice very thinly, because we're going to want really thin slices. So I'm going to do this as best as I can. Really, really thin strips. So I'm doing this as best as I can. I am not a trained chef, so having this in the freezer firms it up, so it's going to help me try and get these as thin as I possibly can. See, that's a lot thinner I would probably be able to manage if this hadn't been in the freezer. So that's my steak cut into as thin as strips as I can possibly manage. I'm quite pleased with that, considering I don't usually cut my steak this thin, or indeed cut at all. So this is looking pretty good. So I'm going to get this to one side as well. And now I can finally get on with cooking my Philly cheesesteak. Now these are usually cooked on really nice, big, flat, like griddle surfaces. I don't have one of those, but I have managed to get myself a nice griddle plate, which is going to be nice and flat. It's going to allow me to cook my onions and my steak at the same time. If you don't have one of these, then you could quite easily use like a large frying pan or a skillet or something like that. But I'm really happy because I've managed to get one of these. I've kind of always wanted one, and this was my excuse for getting one. So I now have this over my medium heat. So I'm going to need to get some oil under here. Because I don't have the soybean oil, I'm just going to use some olive oil. So I'm going to get some over this side, a bit over here. And I'm just going to spread this around with a silicone brush. I'll get a nice even coating of oil over here. Then I want to get my onions onto this surface. I'm going to spread these out so they get nice and even over there. Oh, they're already smelling amazing. Oh, I just love the smell of frying onions. So I'm just going to move these around until they start getting a nice colour on them, not too much, because I don't want them burnt and too brown and bitter, because they become really bitter. We still want a bit of sweetness to them. I'm going to make the use of this whole thing just while I'm cooking these onions, get these all moving around. While those are cooking, I'm going to get one of my nice rolls cut open just so we can see how that looks, and so it's ready for when we get our filling inside it. Also, I want to be really careful not to cut my hand, because again, this is a sharp knife. Oh, there we go. You can see that's a really nice texture in there. That's baked really well, and that's going to be lovely for our Philly cheesesteak. Right, we're getting some good translucency and colour on this, so I'm going to move this all over to one side again, and I'm going to get my steak cooking over on this side. Get that moving around straight away so it doesn't stick to my surface. I think we just want this cooked until it's got colour all the way through. I don't want to overcook it. I don't want it like super well done. I know I'm not really referring to the recipe in the book, but I have watched quite a few videos before of other people doing these, and I think this is quite close to how they would do it. I might get people say in the comments, this isn't how you do it, you're messing it all up. But I'm trying to be as close to authentic as I possibly can as a British man who's never had a Philly cheesesteak before, let alone cooked one. So I hope I am doing this justice. Right, that looks like a pretty nice colour all the way through. So now I need to get this all mixed in with the onions. So I'm going to bring this all together into one mass. It's going to be a lot of filling. I don't know if this will all fit into my my roll, to be honest, but I'm going to give it a darn good try. And while I think about it, I'm going to get some salt and pepper on here, because nothing has been seasoned yet, so always season your food. At least get the basics on there with some salt and pepper. I don't think we need anything more than this for a Philly cheesesteak. Mix this together even more, get that seasoning worked through. So I'm going to pile this up, because this is going to need to be kind of like the shape of my cheesesteak roll. Get this to the right sort of length and width. I'm going to bring down the temperature a bit now, because I don't want to overcook this. So that's a kind of the right sort of size. It's probably a bit wider than my roll, but never mind, better too much than too little, eh? And finally, I want to get my provolone cheese slices over here. This is where kind of you would usually drizzle over like the cheese sauce, but I don't have any, so this is going to have to do. And I want this to melt, so I'm going to get this over the top. We're almost there, we're nearly there. I've waited ages for this. I'm really excited to try this. I know it's not going to be like an authentic Philly cheesesteak because it's me making it, but this is going to have to tide me over until the world returns to normal and I can try my very first Philly cheesesteak for real over in the US. I'm just going to throw a couple more slices on there, why the heck not? Right, my cheese has melted a good amount. I don't want to leave it under there for too much longer because I'm worried about overcooking the steak, but that has melted down very, very nicely. So now it's time to try and get this into my roll intact. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring this up together, get over here with my cheesesteak and try and get underneath it and flip it in. Oh, almost. Not quite. Let's get some of that more in there. Oh, there we go. That looks like a Philly cheesesteak to me. Absolutely packed full of steak and onion there. Get some more of that over here because I'm missing some down the end there. Oh yeah. So there we go, look at that. That looks like a Philly cheesesteak to me. That looks really good. Look at that lovely gooey cheese on there. So I don't want to waste any time. I want to get this eaten while it's hot. So I'm going to get this quickly onto a plate and then I can give it a go. I really want to give it a go. I can't wait to try this. It looks incredible. There we go, look at that. One Philly cheesesteak made from scratch, including the roll. That looks pretty darn good if I do say so myself. Like I said, I've never had one before. I've been to the US but never had a chance to try one. Haven't been to Philly. I feel like if I'm going to have a Philly cheesesteak, I should go to Philly. But because of the way the world is at the moment, and God knows when I'm going to get over to the USA, let alone get out to Philly, I have no idea. So I thought, let's give it a try. I can give my own version a try based off of what was in that book, kind of, and see how it is. And then I can go over to Philly hopefully one day and try the real thing. But this looks pretty good from what I've seen before. This looks fairly close, but obviously there'll be people out there who will tell me that no, you've done it wrong or you've missed that or it should have this. But for my version, for my take, this looks pretty good, I think. And the fact that we made the rolls as well, I think that makes it a little bit more extra special. So I'm really chuffed with that. Just hopefully it will taste really good as well. So I'm not gonna waste any more time because I really want to give this a go. There's a really nice mass of like cheese and stuff over here. So I'm gonna give it a try. God, this is huge. This is an American style portion, that's for sure. So at least I've done that justice if I've done nothing else. So let's give this a quick try. Oh yeah, oh man. Oh God, that is tremendous. That is so good. Oh, that is so good. That steak, I was worried about overcooking it, but it's so lovely, melt in the mouth, tender. And you've got those really nicely cooked onions. You've got just that right amount of salt and pepper seasoning. And that cheese, it just gives a really nice hit of that cheese in there as well. That is really good. For one that I've made, that is really good. So I can't imagine what like the real thing out in Philly will be like. I really can't wait to try one out there. But to tide me over, this is fantastic. This is so good. I'm really happy with that. And the roll is lovely and soft and it's just, well, it's just everything about it's absolutely amazing. I'm really chuffed with that. I'm really chuffed with how that's come out. So I really don't want to waste any time because I want to go off and finish this. I'm not going to talk for ages, which I'm sure you'll be pleased about. But how do you think I did? Do you think I did the Philly cheesesteak justice? I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people out there who watch this. I really want to know how I did. Did I do it right? Did I get even close? I really want to know how I did because I know how proud Philly are of their Philly cheesesteaks and I don't want to have like people say like, no, you butchered it. So I'm really interested in how I did. Let me know what you think. Let me know what I should do differently if I do it again. And otherwise, I'm going to go off and enjoy this. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I'm going to go off and enjoy it. And I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, if you did, like the video. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe to the channel. And otherwise, I will see you next time on Big Friendly Grub. Bye.